Hi, I'm Mark, and today on Arts and Views, I want to talk about the downfall of Boris Johnson. Well, is it really? Well, at least the British ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson has lied to the House of Commons according to a parliamentary committee. He's therefore stepping down as a Member of Parliament with immediate effect. That was said by Johnson on Friday evening. At the same time, he stressed that he had no understanding of the committee's allegations in the scandal surrounding those illegal lockdown celebrations in Downing Street. The committee on the Partygate affair, in which MPs from Johnson's Conservative Party are also represented, recommended suspending the ex-Prime Minister for 10 days. That was reported by British media unanimously. The case should also burden the current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Johnson said he was very sad to have to leave Parliament, at least for the time being. But he was pushed out of Parliament with outrageous bias in an anti-democratic manner by a committee chaired by a Labour Party politician. It was an honour to serve both as an MP and Mayor of London, as the statement said. And Johnson's North West London constituency is set to hold a by-election amid a slump in the polls for the Conservative Tories, so that's going to be interesting. Johnson clearly criticised his successor Sunak as well. When he left Downing Street in the summer of 22, the Tories were only just behind the strongest opposition party Labour in the polls. So just. That gap has gotten much bigger now, is what Johnson said. And polls are currently pointing to a resounding defeat for the Conservatives in the parliamentary elections planned for late 24, early 25. And Johnson still has many supporters, especially at the party's grassroots level, in contrast to Sunak, whom many members see as the Populist's regicide. The move exposes the internal disputes within the Conservative Party. That was a comment by TV broadcaster Sky News on it. The parliamentary committee had previously handed over the results of the investigation to Johnson. And the members of the Privileges Committee had given him 2 weeks to reply, as the BBC reported on Friday. The so-called warning letter lists point of criticism and the corresponding evidence, as well as the punishment that the MPs want to recommend. With his resignation, Johnson is now forestalling a vote in the House of Commons. The committee is investigating whether Johnson lied to Parliament over the Downing Street illegal lockdown party scandal, and has now apparently answered in the affirmative. During the corona pandemic, government workers had repeatedly met in Downing Street and authorities to celebrate with alcohol and music, contrary to the regulations. And Johnson and Sunak were both each fined for attending an event. The ex-Prime Minister stressed that the committee had not presented a snippet of evidence of his misconduct. As it became known shortly before Johnson's resignation, the Brexit champion rewarded several confidants on employees from the Partygate affair with seats in the House of Lords and royal honours. So that's even something on top of the whole thing. This is according to Johnson's Prime Minister's resignations honours list published on Friday evening. His former office manager, Martin Reynolds, who hosted an illegal lockdown party at Downing Street, that was the bring your own booze guy, and he also receives a royal title. Well, like all outgoing Prime Ministers, Johnson, who resigned in September 22 under pressure from his party, can nominate new members for the House of Lords or nominate them for honours. Of course, the opposition criticized Johnson for abusing tradition for nepotism. Former employees of Johnson were also outraged. So, on top of the whole resignation, at the same time he's handing in his list of honours, where people who are in the center of the Partygate affair are getting honours or getting into the House of Lords. This is just ridiculous. But I said something in the beginning of the video I want to come back to as well. But first of all, we all knew Johnson lied to Parliament. We didn't need a committee for it. What I'm quite surprised of was that they only recommended to suspend him for 10 days for lying to Parliament. I mean, right at this moment, I'm doing a spontaneous video, as you can see from the time this video is published, and you've already seen my normal morning video today already. But I have to gather some more information on the details of this committee report, which I couldn't get yet on such short notice because I have tons of appointments today and I wasn't even planning to work today. That's why I worked tons yesterday. And but this is a topic where I had to come back to my studio even with very limited time frame today. But he lied to Parliament. He knew what was going on there. If there's a party in my house in the middle of a lockdown, it was not a business meeting as he always claimed. And he always changed what he was saying in Parliament, one PMQ after another. And of course we all knew in the PMQs before he lied. And he lied as long as he could get through with it. But the major part of this, before I come to the major part, I have to say, that's why I also don't know if his father is still on the honors list. I will know that at another time, and then I will talk about this because I talked about this in an earlier video some weeks ago. But the major point of the whole thing is, that's why also on the thumbnail I made a question out of this. Boris Johnson is like, many always say Teflon guys. I could also call him a lotus guy. You know, this lotus effect we even use for the roofs here in Germany, where all the the water comes down on its own, and it's even cleaning the roof while coming down because of the lotus stuff the roof is covered with. And Johnson is kind of a guy like this. He came back several times. We know all his scandals. I reported on many of those in my videos. I reminded of many of those from the very past in my videos. And he was still there, and he still became prime minister. He was still on the running list for prime minister after Liz Truss resigned. So you always have to expect him to come back. I mean, Boris Johnson, well, a lot of people were saying he's a British Trump. And in this case, a lot of people are expecting Trump to be the runner against Biden in the next election in the USA. And I would not be surprised, first of all, if Johnson runs for parliament again in the next general election. He has so many supporters that might be possible. He will maybe look for another constituency, as he was sometimes talking about, or other people were talking about. Maybe one that is still secure in a situation like the polls are today, I mentioned earlier. But he will try to come back. I'm quite sure of that. He is down now. He will say, as he already started doing this is a political campaign, like Trump is doing now with all the affairs around the secret documents, where he's now facing court on that. And it's always political affairs. If you do something wrong and and the law will be used against you as it's supposed to be, it's all a political affair. Trump is doing that. Johnson is doing that all the time. I mean, the fine was a political affair in his point of view. And it will continue. So I don't see the end of Boris Johnson yet. If you remember what he all did in the years, and he was still there, he was still prime minister. This thing is too small to keep him away from power. And the Partygate affair and a lot of other stuff surrounding Boris Johnson had to accumulate to such a big mountain before he had to resign as prime minister. Everything will be forgotten when he tries to come back by his dear followers. And people have a very short mind. That's unfortunately true. And people believe a lot of crap that if you just wrap it in a very populist way and use all the techniques that populists are using nowadays via social media very successfully, and me saying this as a German is always, but it is the same techniques Goebbels used in the 1920s, 1930s to get the Nazis into power and keeping them in power and keeping the country in check with populist propaganda. And that's what populists do now on social media the whole time. I've just seen some speech from the AfD chairwoman here in Germany, is a right-wing populist, and a lot of fascists in that party, and they're all working like this. If you are an informed person and you listen to stuff like that, I don't know. I'm always wondering that I don't start to puke when I hear this. And we even have this crap in my district council and in our city council. When some of those start talking, I really have to go have a fag. But nevertheless, they are still there, and they are growing. Here in Germany, our current so-called traffic light government is doing everything to make them stronger by arguing internally like hell, by messing up a lot of politics, and they are making them stronger. And people are believing them because people are not informing themselves. People are falling for all this populist crap. And that's why I'm sure that this is not the last we have seen of Boris Johnson. We will see Boris Johnson again. And as I said, next week I'm gonna try to find a few more details, and I'm definitely talking about this topic again. But today, although you already had my morning video, I wanted to talk about this topic because it's a very important one. He will be gone from Parliament. I mean, he's making much more money with speeches than in Parliament, so he will not be too angry not to have to go there for the next year. But I'm quite sure we will see him back. If it's the next general election when the Tories are doomed to fail, I'm not so sure. But the one after that, definitely. And we see what will also happen within the Tories now after the Nazis and Suella Braverman I talked about in another video recently. There's a lot of movement to the right at the moment. Rishi Sunak's seat is not a very steady one at the moment as well. And there's a lot coming up, so we will have to talk a lot about this. Of course, I will still talk a lot about Brexit on this channel. That's how this channel started. But British politics is getting, let's say, more and more complicated and problematic, like some parts of our politics here in Germany, just in a very what is my favorite word always there? The problem, the difficult one. It's always exacerbated compared to ours, although it's the same but exacerbated with all the problems on the extreme right. And there we have to expect a lot. And Johnson is one of their big heroes, although he has no real political intention. Boris Johnson in itself has no political direction, but he is the big figure of the right wingers still. But that's enough for today. I once again want to thank everyone who contributed to the current project up there in the banner. No matter how small the contributions are, I'm grateful for everything. We are still not there, but I still want to thank the ones that contributed since I thanked you guys last for doing it. And so thank you very much. You will help create a new Outside Vies channel on a completely different topic, and you will help getting content to this channel. And so I'm very grateful for you doing this. And no matter how small the contribution is, I am deeply grateful. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.